Today we are working Psalm 45. Psalm 45 in Psalm Magic is very frequently used for a happy marriage and to improve one's speaking abilities. Anybody that wants to get married or have a good relationship or has any desires in regards to a union like that, it doesn't have to be a legal marriage. This is a great psalm. But we're going to use Psalm 45 a little differently today. We are going to work Psalm 45 to orient our deep mind to our soul rather than our ego. So very quickly, I want to just explain what we're doing. The deep mind is such that whatever seeds we plant in that soil, she brings them forth. So if we're planting seeds from the ego mind, we're going to have ego-oriented gardens. But if we plant those seeds from our soul, we're going to have a more soul-oriented garden. So we're going to use Psalm 45 to change our orientation from the ego to the soul. The way we work Psalm Magic is extremely powerful, very simple and easy to perform. We take the psalm in question and we speak it out loud all the way through once without stopping. We call this an incantation. Then we go back through that same psalm and we search for hidden occult meanings that lie within each verse. And by digging for those occult meanings, even if we don't think that we're being very good at it, just the act of doing it, the labor of it, we are in effect taking any of those magical seeds that we find, and sometimes the ones that we don't even realize we found, and we're planting them into the fertile ground of our deep mind, where they will take root, grow, blossom forth, and then bear fruit after their kind. And that's exactly what we are going to do right now with Psalm 45. My heart is inditing in a good manner. I speak of the things which I have made touching the King. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips. Therefore God hath blessed thee forever. Gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O most mighty, with thy glory and thy majesty. And in thy majesty ride prosperously, because of truth and meekness and righteousness, and thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Thine arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, whereby the people fall under thee. Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is a right scepter. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Therefore God, thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. All thy garments smell of myrrh and aloes and cassia, out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made thee glad. King's daughters were among thy honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. Hearken, O daughter, and consider, and incline thy ear. Forget also thine own people and thy father's house. So shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, for he is thy Lord, and worship thou him. And the daughter of Tyre shall be there with a gift. Even the rich among the people shall entreat thy favor. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is wrought of gold. She shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needlework. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto thee. With gladness and rejoicing shall they be brought. They shall enter into the king's palace. Instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. I will make thy name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore shall the people praise thee forever and ever. This is another one of those unusual psalms that just don't seem to follow quite the same format as all the other psalms. This is apparently a psalm for the wedding of a king. Now, the problem that many scholars of the Psalms have with this is that the king here seems to be celebrated as a deity, which was not a part of the Hebraic practice. A couple of things are at play here. One is that this is hearkening back to an older version of a psalm than the rest of the book of Psalms So this is probably hearkening back to more of an Egyptian version of what the Psalms were. But more important than that, this psalm for us isn't speaking of a king in history. This is speaking of your soul. The king is your soul, and the queen is your deep mind. My heart is inditing a good manner. I speak of the things which I have made touching the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. So we are already acknowledging that our words have power, that our words will inscribe things into the book of our deep mind. What we speak belays what we believe, and what we truly believe is what we will experience. Thou art fairer than the children of men. Grace is poured into thy lips, therefore God has blessed thee forever. This is you. This is your soul. This isn't necessarily your personality, definitely not your ego mind, definitely not a lot of the things that you think about yourself within this timeline, this storyline of your life here, but the truth of who you are. You are fairer than the children of men because you're not a child of a person. You're a child of the infinite. You're a child of the divine. Therefore, you are a god. Even in the Psalms, it says, ye are gods. Well, you are a god because you're the offspring of a god. This body that you have may have come from a mortal union, but you're not this body. You're something much, much finer and much more important than that. So therefore, God has blessed you forever. Now, forever doesn't necessarily mean on and on and on and on as a continuation of time. Forever means eternity, and eternity is in the present moment. So you are blessed right now. And think about that, being blessed. That means you have all power as a soul over all things in this world. You have power and dominion over all things in this world because you are blessed to be just that. Gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O most mighty, with thy glory and thy majesty. That's an ancient symbol of majesty. The sword upon your thigh, that's a representation of the power that you are given. Because remember, in ancient monarchies, a king or a monarch was the representation in the physical world of God. You are the representation of God. You are God's divine emissary here. Now, this is an Elohistic psalm, meaning God is called Elohim here. In the Pauline arts, Elohim is not called he or she. Elohim is called they. It is a plural unity. One God, one power, one source, one substance, but it's a prismic expression of that one power. It's the host of angels. It's the angelic host. Just as Elohim subdivides itself as all kinds of different things, you are one of those different things. You are one of those amazing, important beams of light, and you are God's direct emissary here. You have majesty. You are a majestic entity, and in thy majesty ride prosperously because of truth and meekness and righteousness, and thy right hand shall teach thee terrible things. Terrible doesn't mean awful. It means things that mortal people don't even think that they get to know. And your right hand is going to teach you those things. And what is your right hand? It defines it for you: truth, meekness, and righteousness. So truth is that which is given to you from the Creator itself. It's non-negotiable. It's the truth of who you are, why you're here, and that's always there for you to have. The only time that we don't experience truth is when we start getting into the story here in the world, because that's what the ego does. The ego is all about what's not. The ego is form and separation. It carves out your experiences based on what you're not. So the ego starts with poverty. It starts with a lack. And that's not the truth. That's the first lie. God's name is I am. The ego's name is I am not. And you are I am. When you listen to the voice of the ego, you believe that you are not. That's the truth. Now, meekness is what you get as you train. Meekness is what you get when you are an adept. And an adept is somebody that learns that peace is the only goal that you can have in this world. Meekness is powerful. Meekness is peaceful. Meekness doesn't mean a victim, doesn't mean you're weak. It means that you're powerful and you're strong and that you have nothing to prove here. Righteousness is you in your right mind. Now, when you're in your right mind, you're thinking of who you are as a soul, not as an ego, because you recognize the ego is insanity. The ego is talking about what you're not. Well, why do you want to concern yourself with what you're not? You only want to concern yourself with what you are. Truth, meekness, and righteousness. And so you can just keep those three ideas top of mind throughout the day today. Truth, meekness, and righteousness. And those can be the barometer by which you judge any experience that you're going through. Is this true? Am I being meek? Am I being peaceful about this? And am I thinking about this in a healthy way? Is this something that is my right mind responding to, or am I reacting to it out of fear? Because if I'm reacting to something out of fear or anger or anything other than peace, then I'm not in my right mind. Thine arrows are sharp in the heart of the king's enemies, whereby the people fall under thee. The things that are an enemy to you, you don't have to worry about. You don't have to worry about them because the arrows that are given to you are there to destroy those things immediately. When you're thinking about those three things that we just talked about, truth, meekness, and righteousness, when those things are in effect, they automatically dispel anything unlike themselves. So you are always safe and protected against your so-called enemies. Whereby the people fall under thee. The people are your thoughts. Your thoughts fall in line with your soul rather than with your ego because of this. Once you take up the mantle of your power as a soul and you recognize who you are as a soul, as a king, regardless of your physical gender, by the way, because we're going to talk about who the queen is in a minute, that's the masculine part of your mind. That's the masculine part of who you are as a soul, this king. The masculine is the part that is conscious, that is aware, that decides, that makes choices, does things. Whereas the feminine part of the mind is the womb, is that takes the seed and creates and nurtures. You see, souls, regardless of your physical body at birth, and I'm not saying that there aren't different ways of thinking when you're a woman versus when you're a man. There can be that. But ultimately, who you are as a physical body and what your function as a physical body is not the whole picture of who you are as a soul. Who you are as a soul is both genders working in concert, as is a battery or a magnet. So if you want to think of yourself more as a battery or a magnet rather than as a masculine or feminine. When you get into the realm of the soul, you're getting into the realm of hermetic wisdom. And masculine and feminine aren't men and women anymore. They are principles. They are pure principles of being. And you have to be in balance with both of those. You have to be in balance with both masculine and feminine. And that's what this whole psalm is all about. Thou lovest righteousness and hatest wickedness. Hate in the Psalms means turn away from, disregard. Wickedness means that which is bewitched. That means the soul is not under the ego's spell. The soul is always in its right mind. Now, if you as a personality are under the ego's spell, you are in effect being removed from access to your very own soul, to your very own identity. Therefore, God, thy God, meaning Elohim, who is your God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellows. The whole angelic host has anointed you. That's how important you are, that you're above every other aspect of who you are. No matter what your thoughts are, no matter what your motivations are, who you are as a created soul is above all of that. And you are anointed. You are a holy creature. You are so sacred, so essential. The entire universe couldn't exist the way it does without your soul. That's how important you are. The oil of gladness above thy fellows. That means that when you are in your right mind, you are thinking righteously, turning away from being under the spell of the ego, and automatically you are glad. Now, you can always reverse engineer any circumstance that you're in to get to that point by finding something to be glad in. Because gladness is the natural state of your soul. All thy garments smell of myrrh and aloes and cassia out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made thee glad. The garments of your soul are perfumed with myrrh, aloes, and cassia. In the day that this was written, and to this day, those are very gorgeous, precious, expensive fragrances. But they're simply symbols of something even more precious and sacred. The garments that your soul has are fragranced with such a holy perfume. Nobody has encountered it before. Nothing like it in this world. But the closest thing that we can find to it in this world are these very precious, expensive, and delightful fragrances. Aloes is an aloe vera, by the way. It's agar wood. It's a very precious, precious wood. They've synthesized it now so everybody can buy oud, oud perfume. It's a dime a dozen now just because they've been able to synthesize it. In its natural form, it's very rare and expensive. Cassia is very similar to the smell of cinnamon. It's a lot more easy to come by these days, but it was very expensive in the day. And myrrh was not only a beautiful perfume and very expensive, but it was also a medicine. These things that they're listing here are so precious that most people would never see those things together, let alone be able to conceive of being able to afford them. But this is to make sure that you understand how precious you are, that your garments are fragranced with these things, these very expensive things. You just walk by and all you smell is precious. You're so precious smelling. Out of the ivory palaces whereby they have made thee glad. Gladness is something that's coming back again and again. And it's important that you understand, if you're not feeling glad, you're not experiencing yourself. You're experiencing something the ego is trying to convince you of. You're experiencing what you are not. And just as a rule of thumb, if you're not feeling glad, the ego has you under its spell, believing that you're something that you're not. King's daughters were among thy honorable women. Upon thy right hand did stand the queen in gold of Ophir. It's talking about the king coupled with women. Don't think of it in terms of sexual union in the physical world. Think of it as how the masculine and the feminine parts of the mind work together. We decide things with our conscious mind. That's a masculine act. That's the plus side of the battery or the magnet. The seed, we deposit that seed into the ground, which is the feminine, and we get a result. That's just how life works. It's a constant result machine. No matter where you are on the spectrum of life, whether you're in the doldrums or whether you're in the highest expressions of divine principle, there's always result, result, result. That's how the universe is constantly expanding. Hearken, O daughter, and consider and incline thy ear. Forget also thine own people and thy father's house, because you see the deep mind has been taken hostage by the ego. And the deep mind is under the influence of the spell of the ego, the wickedness of the ego. The deep mind believes that the ego is her father. When we're saying, hearken, O daughter, and consider and incline thy ear, forget also thine own people and thy father's house, we're saying it's time for you to disown what you think you know. And now it's time to get married to this king, to your soul. And when that happens, when that divine marriage happens within you, then the results of your life start to reflect the soul rather than the ego. And that's why this is such an important alchemy that we are performing here. So shall the king greatly desire thy beauty, for he is thy Lord, and worship thou him. The two lovers in this scenario love each other. They worship one another. And that's how it should be. And this is how creation is meant to work. Those two parts of your mind work together in such love that only loving things are manifest. Only perfection is manifest. Everything is manifest based on truth, meekness, and righteousness, as were described earlier, because those are the seeds that are being planted in the garden or in the womb. The experiences that you have are no longer experiences of lies, experiences of the ego world, the I am not, and it's going to be the world of I am. And the world of I am is amazing. The world of I am is the world that you all this time have been intended to exist in, not this horrible dwelling that we find ourselves in this world of fear. As beautiful as this world can be, the world as we understand it through the eyes of the ego is a very fearful world, because even at its best, we know we're going to die soon. There's nothing good that you can look forward to ultimately in this world, because you know there's always a tragedy coming. Whereas in the world according to your soul, none of that's true. There's just truth, meekness, and righteousness. There's no tragedy. There's no I am not. There's only I am. And the daughter of Tyr shall be there with a gift. Even the rich among the people shall entreat thy favor. So the daughter of Tyr, meaning the best that this world has to offer, is there with a gift. Whatever billions of dollars could possibly buy you in this world is nothing compared to what is your right, compared to what is your inheritance. Even the rich among the people shall entreat in thy favor. Even the richest people of this world, even that which you've maybe even coveted in this world, is nothing compared to what you have in store for you. The king's daughter is all glorious within. Her clothing is wrought of gold. So that deep mind of yours is wrought of gold. It's the goddess. It's the goddess within you. You've got the god within you, that's the king. The goddess within you, that's the queen. She shall be brought unto the king in raiment of needlework. The virgins, her companions that follow her, shall be brought unto thee. The needlework of those olden days was so fine, was so intricate. They didn't have the technology that we have, even for things like needles. Anything that was that intricate was beyond what any normal mortal person could ever consider owning. And this is what she wears. So this is who you are. You are composed of two sides of one mind, one which is a king and one which is a queen. And it's so valuable that anything in this world is a pale comparison to the value that you have within you already. She is you. She is your deep mind. And those virgins that wait upon her, waiting for her every command, whatever she needs will be taken care of. And that means that whatever you need, she will give to those ladies in waiting to take care of for you, because she is you, as is he. They are both you. This union, this magical marriage and union is you as one battery, as one magnet. With gladness and rejoicing shall they be brought. They shall enter into the king's palace. Now, when you're together like this, when you're working together in this royal marriage, going into that king's palace means that you're going to be going into a whole new way of living. In this particular story, she's been living off in her father's palace, and the king's been waiting for her. For you, that could mean that you've been living in squalor. For you, that could mean that you've been living in fear. For you, that could mean that you've been wanting things that you didn't think were ever going to be able to manifest for you. But now that you're getting your mind together and you're allowing that deep mind to start to create for you based on your soul rather than your ego, you can expect great things, not just in some afterlife, not just somewhere in your imagination, but in your everyday life. That's what it means in that other psalm when it says the meek shall inherit the earth. It says that God will give you every righteous desire of your heart in that psalm. And this is what it's talking about. And this is how that's going to transpire. It's through this royal marriage, through this royal wedding. This is here for your benefit so that you can have a good life. Instead of thy fathers shall be thy children, whom thou mayest make princes in all the earth. So instead of you always thinking, oh, if only I could be like them, or if I could be like them, instead of you always looking to the world to give you the answers, it's going to be your soul and your deep mind working together to create what you want. Those are those princes, and they're going to start to people the entire kingdom. Everything that you want is now what's in store for you. All those other people outside of you, they don't matter anymore. Those are the kings that you used to be concerned with. Now all you care about is what your bride and your groom togetherness are creating, the princes. The new things that you want, it's all about you now. And that's exactly how the infinite wants it. That's how Elohim wants that. Elohim wants you to be concerned with you, not to be concerned with those other kings, with what other people are doing. I will make thy name to be remembered in all generations. Therefore shall the people praise thee forever and ever. The people are the thoughts in your mind, and the thoughts in your mind are supposed to praise you. And when the thoughts in your mind are praising you, what does that do? That enables you to be happy because they are working for you rather than against you. But when the people or those thoughts in your mind are listening to the ego as their king instead of you, then all they can do is show you what you're not and prove to you that you're not, and you're not, and you're not. Now, all these people inside your mind are praising you, and that means they can show you what you are. I am, I am, I am. So I am is who you are. And you got to get used to being I am and get over being I am not, because I am not is no longer a thing, because the deep mind, that queen, that princess, has turned her back on I am not and is now marrying I am. And that is going on within you, and that's the truth of who you are. So remember throughout the day about those three qualities that it gave you: truth, meekness, and righteousness. And when you have those things going, this marriage of yours that is happening within is happily ever after. So you just keep coming back to this psalm each and every day until you get a sense that everything's working out. There's the sense of peace and certainty that all is well. And when you get that little click, you know that all is well and that your spell has been cast and you don't have to cast anymore. You can just move on to something else. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. Until next time, blessed be.